So my name's Laura Thompson. I'm a Gunditjmara woman and artist, and I'm managing director and co-founder of Clothing the Gap. It's not so much my journey with art, but with fashion. So I was one of those people who really wanted to, when I stepped out of the house, I thought, well, what can I wear to represent my cultural identity, my Aboriginality, and celebrate my culture? So, I really started with developing jewellery, and now I design fashion. Oh my God, I was so excited. I always hoped, it was on my wish list that maybe one day I'd get to design an Indigenous guernsey, and for me, being able to do that with one of my friends, Eddie Betts, whilst he's playing was an absolute privilege, and I'm absolutely stoked to be able to do that. I think the first thing I thought about when designing the jumper was I thought about the Indigenous players that play for Carlton. The 7 Indigenous players, I really wanted to represent them in the jumper, their mobs, their country and their families. And one of the ways I did that was putting all the players' Aboriginal mob names on the jumper. I guess it was also important to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which the Carlton Football Club's located. So it was important to recognise the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Yeah, so I guess the first thing is this design down the side is the Birrarung, also known as the Yarra River. This is a significant place for the Wurundjeri people and neighbouring nations. And flowing within the river, you'll find the mob names of the Indigenous players at Carlton. So it's sort of celebrating the players, their families and the countries to which they belong. On the shoulder of the jumper, you'll find some campfires, and that represents the gathering of the other Carlton players, the staff and the fans sort of coming together, supporting the Indigenous players and the causes. I think it's really bright. I'm really proud of how the jumpers come out, and I really hope that, for the Indigenous players most importantly and their family, that this resonates with them and people use this opportunity to look at the language groups and see where these countries are, and maybe do some research on the Indigenous players and see which mob is connected to which player.
Oh, absolutely honoured to have the designer. I love watching clips in front of the person that's on it. It's very cool. Good morning, Laura.
Morning, Troy.
How you doing?
Good.
What you up to?
Not just getting some caffeine in, and it looks like a nice morning.
Yeah, nice. It must feel really special. We've talked to you about a few other things that you do in your life, but I do want to try and discover some new stuff about you, and probably people don't know you as solidly as someone that is an absolute creative genius. And you started off, talk about your earrings. Is that what you're wearing today? I mean, how long have you been designing stuff?
I think I'm one of those people that sees words and wants to, I wouldn't say I was the best artist, but I like to see complicated things visually. So I think I always started from that place. And with my jewelry, I guess it was an opportunity. I loved earrings. It's not that complicated. I loved earrings. I thought, how do I put my culture on my earrings that I love to wear every day? And so it's been about 5 years or so since the Koorie Circles. Kicking on. Yeah.
So was it Koorie Circle earrings? Was that, sorry, is it Koorie Circle Earrings? Is it just earrings that you're dabbling in?
Just earrings. People go, make necklaces. I'm like, I don't wear necklaces.
As long as you don't wear it, you're not making it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So was that your first endeavour into bringing your artwork outside of just at home and into your public, and then people criticising it and buying it and that whole journey?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I pretty much started with my art straight onto fashion. I wasn't doing paintings. I'm not sort of that person. Unless it's got a practical application, it's going to be seen and worn. I wasn't. So that's when I started talking about my art being, or automatically the canvas being fashion.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
We had the pleasure of speaking to Dixon yesterday, and he talked about his journey, and he dabbled a little bit on where his connection comes from, and it is all about family and community and getting back to community, and it had a lot to do with his art. Whereabouts does your art stories and connection come from?
Yeah, so I'm a Gunditjmara woman, family with Dixon, so I actually love his work. So from the Western Districts of Victoria. So, you'll sort of see in the jumper, and you guys can see in lots of my designs, sort of just the line work and using symbols like these are the Bunjil, the corn creators, and symbols that resonate with me, and just making sure that, traditionally I'm using styles that are relevant to my mobs.
Did people, I've got a tricky question, I guess. Where does it become certain that your symbols are your symbols? Or is that?
I don't know if that's a question for me or not. I think that's something. I know that's really maybe for the art code.
You know, like I mean, you got Warlpiri people's got their symbols, and it feels like even people question and talk about the Yidaki coming further down south, but it's not just Yolngu, it's Warlpiri. Kulin Nations. Are we confident or aware of some symbols and art forms that are originally from Kulin Nations?
I couldn't tell you. I think what's important, I guess for me, and one of the ways that I get assurance when I do art is even more and more now, given like those questions that you asked and more sort of the criticism that's coming around, where does this art belong to? Who does it belong to? I just make sure that your story has to be rock solid. And when you design something, it does come from your heart, and sort of almost creating like a bit of a, like a mood board of what I'm trying to create. So where am I getting inspiration from to create the piece of art or the piece of clothes? And I find that I think that will become more and more useful if someone was ever to say, where's that from? How did you come to that? And you can say, well, this is actually my reasoning. This is my thought process. This is my creative thought process when I come up with this design.
And was that, do you find with the knowledge that you do have, was art always used as telling such varying stories? Because your story there, I mean, you've used traditional art, which has got a long-standing place in history, to a very current. The game's not even being played yet; it's coming up this weekend. But you've used it to say, this is the players coming along and the fans to support the Indigenous players. It's a beautiful story. Is that what art's power is, to talk about things that are current, but also connecting it to the old?
Yeah, and I think absolutely, and I think for anyone who looks at my art across, Clothing the Gap and the Koorie Circle will see that my style is very much storytelling. So some of it is art, but a lot of it might be, like this, or behind you, the Free the Flag symbol. So just quite, I guess in some ways I'm creating, I don't know, like motifs or logos or art that's almost a statement in and of itself in a small way to tell a story, to make a powerful punch rather than big canvases. Yeah.
How did you find out? You talked about it then. It's pretty exciting that you got to design a jumper for a football club. It's so cool.
I know, cool. It was. I was like, in the back of my mind, I thought that would be really cool, just because how much, even this year, how much attention the jumpers get. Like, I know myself, I'm like looking for everyone as they drop. Who's the artist? What's the story? Do I like it? Who's this better? I don't know. Like, we're all doing that. It's fine. Like, I'm obsessed with the Richmond jumper.
Yeah,
like, and I'm a Collingwood supporter, and I did the Carlton jumper, but I don't think, I think, Aboriginal people and footy fans can appreciate, it's an opportunity for us all to appreciate the diversity of Aboriginal art when we're looking at them on the jumpers. So it's cool.
How long did it take you to come up with the design, and how long did you spend on the Carlton one? If you say overnight, I'm going to headbutt you.
No, it didn't. It took ages, and I don't know why. And I think sometimes when you sort of, I've got a long-standing relationship with Eddie Betts, and he says, would you do the jumper? So I'd be absolutely honoured. And I was telling a story that wasn't a story that I was initiating from me. It was a story where someone said, Laura, you tell a story about, this is the brief. We want you to tell this sort of story, or a version that you're comfortable with like that. So it didn't come from me. So it was harder to get the artwork to correlate with a story that was also comfortable with me, but also the club. And then I had timelines and pressure, and I was like, oh my God, this wasn't, it didn't come easy, even though it's a really simplistic design.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's a bit of pressure. It's kind of not really something that, I mean, it goes straight out to the public. It's not like, does people want to buy this? It's not about that. Like, everyone, the whole team's running around on it. People are going to be buying it. Kids are going to be in the crowd wearing it. It's
Yeah, I was holding my breath for probably a couple months. Yeah.
That's epic. That's epic. I'm just rounding up everything that you've done in the most recent years, and a lot of it does have to do with branding and logo and imagery, and it's really beautiful that you got an opportunity to do something traditional with some of the stuff. And I put on a t-shirt today and then thought, am I allowed to wear this? You are on this journey of using emblems and logos and imagery and hitting some pretty big walls. Like, who would have thought that you've come up with two really massive campaigns? One's Free the Flag and one's You're Clothing the Gap, and both of them have had some pretty serious hurdles. Where are you at the moment with those two logos? I noticed this one's turned to Clothing the Gaps.
Yep, that's correct.
And it's because it clashed with the Gap. Is it Gap Clothing in America? It's crazy.
I know.
What's their problem? What happened?
Well, it was like the same time. Well, it was 2 years ago. We got a notice from the Gap Clothing in America. We're so small. We're running under Spark Health. Like, Clothing the Gap wasn't even its own company. And I was like, how do they even know about us? But they knew about us because I tried to put the name through. You know, I'm trying to be a proper business person, so I put Clothing the Gaps through the copyright place to trademark the name. And it must have, initiated sort of a red flag for the Gap. And they said, look, the Gap's trademarked to the Gap. And because the word clothing and the were too generic, they can't be trademarked, which left the word Gap. Yeah. So I thought, but that's ridiculous because there's no confusion between the brands. And we decided to fight. So the same lawyers who have represented us pro bono on Free the Flag, I sort of said, look, if you want to represent us on Free the Flag, can you do this one as well? This is the deal. It's 2 for 1.
Just change the wording.
Yeah. So they did. So I've got some incredible pro bono lawyers. And they did, and we fought in the trademark tribunal, and they put together a really strong case about how there's no brand confusion. When people see Clothing the Gap and the red, black and yellow, there's no Gap in trading really in America at the moment. There was no brand confusion. And some days, like as soon as the lawyers and they were like barristers finished the tribunal, they said, Laura, I don't think that went very well. We had a judge that was saying that was very new, and had someone else have heard this, maybe there would be a different outcome. And our next steps were to either appeal and go to the federal court, which would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, or to try and negotiate an outcome. So we thought if we could add the S, that would be cool, because then people would still be able to find us.
Yes.
And and there's more than one Gap that we need to close. And then we were able to reach that negotiation with Gap Clothing America, fortunately.
Oh, that's great. So, cool. So you're still rolling forward with Clothing the Gaps.
Yep.
clothingthegaps.com.au. It's really cool. I've got a few listeners already chiming in saying they love your brand. I mean, so many people know. I went up to it was a NAIDOC day this year. Hang on. Last year, and I was in Alice Springs, and they had their was it NAIDOC day? Something like that. No, it was the March. It was the March, and it was and I saw heaps of people with Always Was, Always Will Be and Free the Flag t-shirts in a little small rally in Alice Springs. I mean, you've gone quite big. It's a brilliant effort. Big compliments to your team. How's your team looking at the moment, and how many people are behind the engine that you've created? I mean, it's beautiful to see lovely Madika grow in your business, but talk about how the team's growing and where's it at.
They're definitely my work fam.
Yeah.
We're so close, and I just love going to work, and I just love all the people that work for me. It's mostly, majority young Aboriginal people who are employed either casually or part-time. This year's, I feel, really like a stepping stone for them into whatever they want to do, but they love working there. They tell me that. No, they do, because it's a safe, black space that's a stepping stone for something else. Like, no one wants to pick and pack clothes forever. I get that. But essentially, like, the back engine of Clothing the Gap is, it's a distribution centre. And someone else could be packing and folding our clothes, but we choose to do that in-house because we want to employ Aboriginal people. and it just makes going to work so much more joyful when we're surrounded by these guys. One of the guys that I employ, Glenn, I've been taking him on this footy journey with me because he's an absolute, he's just done his sports qualifications, and he just knows everything about football. Like, he's my eyes and ears in the football space. I'm like,
cool.
I said, which player is that? And he goes, Laura, that's the coach. Thank God you're here, Glenn. Anyway, I was like, Glenn, you're in the wrong job. Like, you're an incredible employee, but I really need to find you another space for you to work in the football field. So, I will generally try and use this as a place, make sure that my staff are right. It's a place where they can keep coming back to. For any Aboriginal people are listening, and I've told this to my staff too, if you come into the store, let the staff know and we'll show you what the engine room looks like at the back. Like, it's really inspirational to see what does small business look like, not just at the front of house, but behind as well.
It's beautiful. I think it's got a lot to do with why your brand's so friendly, I guess. These decisions that you do from the back end, your transparency and connection doesn't stop from hoping that people see the message. You're doing it all the way behind that wall of distribution and people coming in. And I know, I see all your social media, it does look like a very, very fun place to work. And I'm thinking, do these guys ever pack anything? And there's so much, your highlight, your goof reel would be absolutely epic at the end of the year.
Well, and this is the thing, right? So they're employed as casual retail support staff. But when we run out of orders to pack, I'm like, guys, I don't know, make a reel. And this next generation of young people, they're like, that just really comes natural to them. So they never expected that they're going to spend so much time on front of the camera or taking pictures and modelling in our photo. I don't know if it's exploitation or it's actually, I think they love doing it. They want to do it. But our days, any one day, it's always completely a mixed bag.
Have you noticed people come out of their shell a lot more from working within your framework?
Yeah, one girl, I'm going to say her name, Aisha, who worked with us, was real shy, and she just wanted to stay in the back, and she was just folding, and now she's gone to packing orders, and I'm like, you've got this, you're going to be able to be in the retail space soon. She goes, yeah, I feel like I can now. And she was really just shame, in all honesty, she was ashamed to talk to white fellas. I think for lots of Aboriginal fellas and people, we stay in circles that are really familiar for us, and that's around community. So for her being in the shop, and we talk about being a friendly brand, certainly our, the ally friendly and the allies have gotten around us. We're getting more and more mob in the shop, but there are lots of non-Indigenous supporters in our space.
Yeah.
And for some of our staff, they're not always, that's not the community that they usually hang around. So, but we're getting there.
It's so cool. I mean, most people probably would have been frightened to start a new shop in current circumstances, especially in the last 24 hours. It's beautiful that you've gone from distribution to wholesale to retail and then onto a shop. Tell us how the shop's going and whereabouts is it? Give it a little plug. I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, we're at 744 Sydney Road, Brunswick. You won't miss us because we've painted the shop red, black and yellow.
Cool.
God, that was so cool. And I'm so excited about the shop being painted. For the main reason is people used to come in and say, hey, you'll pop up. And I was like, nah, we're an Aboriginal business. We're successful, we're strong, and look, and we're taking up space. You can't miss us now. I hope that we become a destination point. Feedback from our customers, even Aboriginal people visiting from other states will say, I just felt it was so lovely walking to this space. I felt like I belonged. And unfortunately, this really makes me sad that, that they didn't feel like someone was looking at them, feeling like that they were being discriminated against, that they might steal something. And that's unfortunately how, it's just really sad that people think, well, I didn't have that experience when I was in your shop. I felt welcomed. I wasn't stereotyped. And that's why I think it's so important we create black spaces that are made for Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people are invited in.
Can I just say, I felt that yesterday. I went into a shop. I went in with my Aboriginal beanie, and it's quite funny. I remember talking to you when I bought a T-shirt before I went overseas, and you're like, Which one do you want to go? Do you want to go with the conversation starter or the subtle? And this one that I've got on now was the subtle one. And the other one, which said free the flag, nice bold writing, was the conversation starter. It's like, do you want to walk down the street and get stereotyped, or do you want to just kind of creep on in and out without being noticed like the rest of the population does? It's a very real reality. I felt it yesterday when I went into my local IGA at St Leonard's. Very white town here, with my Aboriginal beanie on, and I feel like far out. I'm going to take this off. This is yesterday. That is it. And you just talk about it there, that you've created a space. I don't think there'd be many spaces that Indigenous people walk into a shop and don't think something, even though they've got a clean record, they're stand-up citizens. It's a problem, yeah? Like it's an unspoken, unseen, and maybe definitely not a felt thing for when we talk about privilege, which we've talked about so much over the years, and white privilege is real. It's because you can walk into a shop and not get stereotyped. And
I wonder, and it's not something I've explored a lot, but I think, for any of the listeners, for any of us, when we put on, a piece of Clothing the Gap merch, or a piece of, wear the flag, or something, another Aboriginal design, how do you feel about it? Like, how does that, what's that little inner voice in your voice telling you? How comfortable are you? And what experience do you have wearing that? Because essentially you're a walking billboard, and people, will create conversations. People will judge you as a result. Now, speaking to some of the footballers, and I asked them that question, I said, does anyone have any Clothing the Gap merch? I said, yeah. I said, how do you feel wearing it? And quite honestly, someone goes, sometimes I feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, depending on which space you are, like in Brunswick, in the Brunswick bubble, everyone's wearing it's cool, like it's a uniform.
Yeah.
But, the further you step out, like into St Leonard's, or, I was on Gunditjmara country back in Portland, and I was wearing what I usually wear every day, and I put this shirt on, and I felt like I was the biggest political activist.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was pushing boundaries, and I was in those towns. And it gives me appreciation, I think, for the people that do wear my clothes in spaces. It's not always easy. It's for non-Indigenous people, other non-Indigenous people will come and say, why are you wearing that? You're not Aboriginal. Why? That's not your cause to talk about. So these are the internal conversations people have, even themselves, not even externally, when they wear our clothes. And that's the thing. I think it's important more and more, as the brand grows, we start to talk about what's that little voice inside your head saying when you wear merch with a message.
Brilliant. Non-Indigenous people, do you want them? Do we want them to wear big, bold clothing?
Look, yes. From my perspective, yes. And the reason being is I'm not going to, an Aboriginal person, we talked about the spaces I hang out in. I keep my circle really close with people I trust. So I'm having those conversations with people that might already know about that issue. But for non-Indigenous people going to spaces that might be mostly white, how do we ensure that those conversations are happening over there? And when you get that, non-Indigenous ally who's doing their best to educate themselves and support the cause, they can lead those conversations over there. It's 3% of the population not trying to create social change. We need our allies.
I've talked about this before. I've got a few times a year, and it happens all the time. And I love these people dearly. They message me privately, very privately, and tell me what they're doing, or they tag me in a post about something brilliant happening got to do with First Nations people. And it's always like, why are you tagging me all the time and keeping it all discreto? Why don't you share the post and go, this is where I stand with this, instead of, and is that's what you're talking about? Hey, like.
Absolutely. I remember one fella come into the shop, and it was just before Jan 26, and he wanted to buy an Aboriginal flag t-shirt, and he found us on Google. It was really weird. It was odd. He wasn't even all over social media. He was an older fella. He come in and he said, I want to buy an Aboriginal flag. I said, I don't have it. I said, gave him a brief rundown of why. Yeah. And I sold him the Not the Date to Celebrate t-shirt. And I said, what are you going to do with it? And he goes, I need this t-shirt because I'm going on a family trip with my non-Indigenous friends, and I want them to know I want to have this conversation with them about Invasion Day. I'm like, I've equipped him now. I feel like I've given him, you know what I mean? Like, go out in the world and tell your friends.
Yeah.
And the T-shirt was his way of ensuring that happened there. So certainly, it does work.
It does work. It definitely does work. It works exactly for that. Because it's a bit harder to go, hey, anyway, so what's everyone been up to? By the way, just before we go on our picnic lunch today for Daryl's 80th birthday, thanks all for coming. I just want to talk about what's happening tomorrow about Australia Day. I'm not calling it Australia anymore. I'm going to call it Invasion Day. What do you think? But chuck the T-shirt on.
And then there's times when, we put a T-shirt on. I put a T-shirt on, and I think I'm wearing my values, so now I don't have to talk about it. Don't ask me nothing about it. You know where I stand on it.
Yeah.
And they're also the T-shirts to wear when you're too tired to talk.
Just a full sentence. Point up there, not speaking that way, speaking this way.
Now go Google. I'm done.
That's so good. Well, that's a big encouragement, I think, for the listeners. We've got both a mix of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people that tune into this show and also listen back to the thing. And I guess, we're constantly getting asked, should I be, from people, am I allowed to? And they ask not knowing. So it's nice, I think, to still ask. But
absolutely. I think for us, when we created our ally-friendly and mob-only symbols, we sort of, because we're getting that DM all the time, can I? And it was a respectful question. And I just thought, it's getting tiring. I might create some labels. And once I chucked them on, created certainty, and then more people bought from us as a result. So, labeling products has definitely worked for us and our customers and followers community.
I love it, Laws. We could ramble on forever. When is Carlton playing? Are they playing this weekend or the next?
The following weekend.
The following weekend, which is pretty cool. We get 2 weeks of Sir Doug Nicholls around.
I know. I'm looking. My wish. This is my hope. I'm putting it out there in the world. I'm looking for the first football club to adopt an Indigenous round jumper for every round of the year.
Totally.
I don't understand why it's such a big deal. How cool would it be? I reckon all Indigenous people, well, maybe a lot, would change clubs. I would change clubs and my loyalty for that. And then maybe...
Well, you're all over the shop anyway. You're like Richmond, Carlton. You've talked about a few. You don't know.
I'm all about who supports the cause.
And it was really cool to see the last few years the Free the Flag T-shirts being used by Carlton, and I know a fair few other, I think nearly most teams last year. There was a particular round where all the teams came out, and it was ahead of the Free the Flag case that you had. What's going on this year? Is other T-shirts? Is the Free the Flag T-shirt going to be worn this year in warm up?
Yeah, for some of the clubs, yes. So some clubs have approached us that they want to continue to support us.
Cool.
I'll not support us, let's say support the cause, because since last year, when all the when all the players supported the cause for Indigenous round, that power of sport, and we'd already had 150,000 people sign our Pride Not Profit petition.
Yeah.
And then we had all this media coverage from the footballers wearing our stuff. 3 days later, they announced the Senate inquiry, and I was like, oh my God, the political power of sport, like that, whatever that was, the Indigenous round, worked. But now it's like 8 months on from the Senate inquiry and nothing's changed, and the Aboriginal flag's still missing from Indigenous round. So really, I'm honestly getting tired of talking about it. So and I think some people, it's still new for some people are sick of it. That's how I feel. So more than ever, I think when we're struggling with issues and we're struggling with momentum and that push, we need people to get around us. Like, nothing's changed. We still need to be talking about the Aboriginal flag copyright issue.
Yeah, the only reason it's gone quiet is you've taken a break, or mob have taken a break, and the allyship hasn't gotten strong enough to carry the same momentum. It's a reality. Is the Free the Flag? What's happened? Where's it at?
Nothing's changed. I'm really excited about this. On the 31st of May, we're doing a national rock poster campaign. So we'll have Free the Flag rock posters in every capital city all over the country. I hope that builds some more momentum. We've got, our Indigenous round players running out in it. And, just sort of meeting with the NIAA in Canberra to still talk about it. It's the 50th anniversary year of the Aboriginal flag. I'm looking at doing politicians don't know this yet. These are all these random strategies. A poly pledge, that's a thing, where all the politicians who say that they support the campaign, calling them out and celebrating them really. Look at all these politicians, who's missing from it? Like, contact your MP and see where they stand on this issue. I guess that could be, that's the next plan of the strategy of where we'll go is, I get to meet lots of politicians and they say that they support the cause. Let's put your name on the supporter list and see what that looks like. Documentary would be great. I think this story needs to be told.
Definitely. Is there anything on the flag? Anything really, really updated, or is it just old footage that people get dragging up?
There's nothing that's pulled it all together from the creation of the flag till where we are now with being able to use it. So it's just an opportunity, I think, to tell that story, something that would, again, be great for the Free the Flag cause, because what we're doing is raising awareness and educating people about the use of the flag. 18 months on, I'm really sad about where the campaign's got, because it's not resolved, but 18 months on, I'm seeing less and less Aboriginal flags. And that point of the Free the Flag movement was to see more flags. And the longer it drags on, now I'm seeing less.
Why?
Because people aren't using it.
Because they're worried.
They're worried and they don't want to pay. And they don't want to ask permission from a non-Indigenous company to use it. And then if you do use it, people look at you as a sellout.
It's a shame.
You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I feel like that's the emotional toll of the campaign dragging on for as long as it has, is the fact that I know that the campaign's impacted on the visibility really of Aboriginal people. When we see flags, we feel more safe in spaces. And when what's the impact for people when they're going into space and not seeing those Aboriginal symbols that make us feel safe? That's why more and more, these Indigenous jumpers and other ways that we can show our connection and support become more powerful now.
Yeah. Got some great comments. And I just put up the shop there. If anyone is in the listener group right now or listens back to this show, head to clothingthegaps with an s.com.au. Otherwise, you can't now because we're in lockdown. Lockdown Larry's just come along and shut things down. But once the lockdown's over, race up to Brunswick. What's the address?
744 Sydney Road, Brunswick. So we're closed today, but we are doing click and collect.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I know where you... Are you up near...
Albion Street.
Albion?
Well, opposite Don Bosco.
Oh, yeah. The soup place that no one goes to, but everyone knows it. Is that what it is?
No, the youth centre.
Oh, right.
I send my kids there, they babysit them for me. It's grouse.
Oh. You're such a good community starter. I love it. Hey, Laws, I'm going to let you enjoy the morning. I really appreciate you coming on. And
no worries.
Go Richmond, go Carlton, go. Who else you got? Collingwood.
Collingwood.
Oh, yeah. Go all the teams that support the cause. But we love you, Laws, and have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Troy.
Nice one. See ya.